Hello and welcome to the Grid Irn-Cru, an American football podcast made in Scotland by NFL lovers. This episode of Grid Irn-Cru Special Cru is the second in a series of episodes in which myself and Gav will be covering the world of flag football. We have a very special guest joining us on this episode, fresh from the World Championships in Lahti, Finland, and actually celebrating her birthday today. It's Team USA Women's wide receiver, Izzy. How are you, Izzy?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Yeah, excellent. It's excellent. It's great to have you on. Thanks for making time for us on your birthday.
Thanks for inviting me on. I'm very excited to be here.
As you were telling us before we came on air, a breakfast of presents and donuts this morning.
Yeah, very much so. A lot of sugar. I'm gonna have some actual breakfast, I think, after this. So.
quite literally a breakfast of champions.
Yeah, chocolate milk too.
That just seals the deal for us. Izzy, we're going to start this by easing you in gently to the conversation and start off by you telling us about you, basically. So, you're a native of North Rich. I can't even speak today. Ridgeville, Cleveland, Ohio. Let us know how did your sporting journey begin in childhood, and take us right up to before you started high school in terms of what you did in terms of sports and what ages and things like that.
Okay, so I pretty much wanted to do everything I could. And some sports overlapped with seasons, so I was doing two things at once. I started in, like every little kid around here, their parents put them in soccer. And so I started in soccer and I started in basketball. This was around the age of 7. I think I may have started soccer like way earlier than that. But anyway, it was soccer, basketball, and then I wanted to play football. And it was all boys at the time, and it was flag because at a younger age, they don't want kids like tackling, hitting it. So it was flag football, but it wasn't the flag that I play today. It was 11 on each side of the field, just like normal football. And we wore helmets, no pads. We wore like padded pants, and then we had flags. And you could flag guard, so you could smack kids' hands away, which was really funny. So I was in that, and I had to convince my parents. They didn't really need much convincing, honestly. They were like, whatever, it's flag football. Like, she'll be fine. And then I also played t-ball at that time. So all of that. And I continued to play those sports up until my 8th grade. So I think I was around 13 when I gave up softball, soccer, everything like that. And then I continued to play football through middle school, through high school, my freshman year of high school, and basketball. I continued to play, and then I picked up track my 8th grade year of middle school, I want to say. So when I was 13, I started as a sprinter, and then I became a jumper slowly because they were like, we have no one to do it. You play basketball. We feel like you can jump. So let's just stick you in it and see what happens. So I grew to really love track. It was still on like the back burner compared to basketball. Then I got to high school, did my freshman year of basketball, football, and track. And I think that was it at the time. Gave football up after that. My second year, I did basketball, track. That was it. Junior year moved.
We'll do. We'll come back. Let's not get too far ahead. We'll give people all the answers too early. Going back, you obviously started. I think I was listening to the Breaking Barriers chat that you did with Vanita and Ashley before the Worlds, and you're talking about playing flag, like you say, 11v11 at 7 or 8 years old. And a point that Ashley made about flag football was it's a great introduction for kids into the sport in terms of it teaches them about speed and hand coordination and stuff like that. Is that obviously now as the sport is becoming bigger in terms of flag? Is that a great point that she's made in terms of it's a great sport to get the kids into?
Yeah, of course. Like it's like there's minimal contact in kids flag, and then you get the understanding of football in general. But I feel like a lot of it is geared toward prepping for tackle. But now that we have this outlet for women, girls can just jump right into like 5v5 flag or 7-on-7 flag, and get used to playing that before, because some high schools are sanctioning it here. So it's great to get them into it early. And then once they get to high school, hopefully saying their state has it sanctioned, they can play, or they would play club. And then now that we have this outlet as a U.S. national team from USA Football, then they're able to go through that pathway, and hopefully then in the Olympics in 2028.
Yeah, it will be good for kids nowadays. They can see they have a goal to get to the Olympics or to play for the national 2015. But going back to when you were a kid, that wasn't probably an option or a kind of thing to think of. Was it just the love of the sport that made you want to play it?
Yeah, I grew up watching football, and I just loved watching. I love watching the Browns. I'm from Cleveland. That's my team, unfortunately, but it is. Um, and I grew up watching the Buckeyes, so I was a big Buckeye football fan. Um, and I mean, ever since then, I just wanted to play, and no one ever told me no, like, you can't play with the boys, like, it is what it is, like, whatever, she's a girl, she'll be fine, like, and so I played flag, and then I got into tackle, and I grew with the same kids that I played flag with, so that was probably the best part is I got to know their parents, and they knew me, so it was like having brothers throughout this whole entire experience, which was probably the best part and, ended up making it a lot easier on me in the long run.
Yeah. You mentioned there when you got to high school, you chose to go with basketball as your main sport. What was kind of what things did you weigh up in terms of I need to pick something here, and what made you kind of sway towards basketball?
Um, I my coach was talking to me a lot, and my parents just wanted like whatever made me happy. But it got to a point where I was getting recruited for basketball and I was getting offers that would pay for my entire college schooling. So I kind of had to think about that. And then the boys were continuing to grow. And obviously I had like peaked in my growth pretty much. And I just didn't want to have to be putting up like crazy weight in the gym to be able to combat these hits. So I thought about it a lot. I didn't want to get hurt for basketball and just ruin that chance of getting schooling paid for. So I
Yeah.
focused on basketball, set football aside, and yeah, ever since then, like through college, I just remember following football and being like, man, I miss it so much. But luckily, here we are and we're back. So didn't
And
last too long.
it's probably worth mentioning as well. Now, I think Izzy, you're listed at 5'9", so you're not particularly short either. You know, for certainly for women, quite tall. But when you're compared to like guys that are hitting the gym for football, obviously it's a big difference.
Huge difference, yeah. Like they just kept growing and they just kept putting up more and more and more weight and eating and eating and eating. And I'm like, oh no, I don't think I'll be doing that.
I think a point you made when you were talking to Venita and Ashley was that you were basically told that if you get hurt playing football, your scholarships will go away. So I take it that's a big bit of pressure on you to think, yeah, fair point. My college education could be paid for here, but one wrong tackle or one wrong move in the football field and something like that can all disappear.
Yeah, very much. Like it would have been terrible. So I'm glad I chose the way I did.
Yeah,
I think it's maybe worthwhile just mentioning for context as well, I guess the pressure that comes with that, because here where like Dan and I are based in Scotland, university tuition is free for anyone that lives in Scotland. So I think we have to pay a £2,000, which is about maybe $2,500 charge after graduation, but that's even on a loan basis. So I mean, certainly for students, you know, if they meet the grades, they can comfortably go to university in most circumstances. But obviously, you know, even in other parts of the UK and of course US, yeah, it's a big difference in cost.
Oh yeah, and it's just like continuing to rise. Like there's colleges that are like it's just like so expensive I can't even comprehend it. Like luckily I didn't have to pay any of that and I'm not in debt now, but I mean, it's a lot of money to go to school now, which is
yeah.
why I didn't continue pursuing my master's yet.
Still plenty of time for that yet.
Yeah.
Obviously, you continued to play basketball through your time at North Ridgeville. I've pulled up some stats from your senior year, which were fairly impressive. I've got to say, I'm not a massive basketball player. Gav's a basketball one of the two of us, but in your senior year, you averaged 17 points, 8.2 rebounds, 3.8 steals, and 2.4 assists. Picked up 2 Player of the Year awards. You also get the Lane County Miss Basketball 2018, and you left as the all-time leading scorer for North Ridgeville. That's some resume to finish high school with.
Yeah, it was a good time. I enjoyed my high school basketball career. I enjoyed my teammates, representing my school. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I quickly learned though I got to college and that was everybody's resume. So it was a competition for sure, like trying to fight for a spot. So but yeah, the high school days were fun.
Yeah, and talking about, obviously, you mentioned track and field at high school as well. How much did you maintain that alongside your basketball?
I did track. I want to say it was 3 years out of the 4 years of high school. I don't remember what year. I think it was my junior year. No, it must have been my sophomore year actually, where I took a pause from it because it overlapped with my club basketball team. So we would travel to other states and play basketball to get looked at by colleges and college scouts.
Yeah.
So I remember it overlapped, and I had to give up track for a semester or a season, and immediately I was like, okay, I regret doing that because I missed track a lot. And I actually got recruited to Cleveland State's track team. So the school that I ended up playing basketball for, the track coach actually recruited me for that. But some things happened, and my basketball coach didn't want me to pursue both, even though I was going to be there anyway. So I didn't really get to do that until my 5th year when I was at USC Upstate.
And I think maybe one thing, maybe just ask what we're kind of talking about the early years for yourself, Izzy, is just in terms of your early years, what inspired you, or perhaps who inspired you in sports, both from whether that's basketball, football, track. I guess what motivated you to make this such a big part of your development?
Man, I think it was, I mean, one, my family. I enjoyed them being able to come out and support me, and I think they enjoyed being able to come out and support me. And it was that I just wanted to be better than I was before, and it was always, I mean, when I was younger, it was like just a fun game. And I mean, it still is just a fun game to me. Any sport that I play, it's just like something that I've played since I was 7, and I just love it. And I do it for the love of the game. But then it got to being like, I want to prove these people wrong, and I want to prove myself right and continue to be better. So that's really what kept me going. And then my family just being like so supportive with that made me want to continue to push harder as well.
Excellent, isn't it? I mean, the families are always your biggest supporters, aren't they? And they're also your biggest critics in a good way as well. Like, if your family, you're going to get exactly when you've not done something right or as well as you can, your family are going to be the first person to come down on you and tell you that. And obviously,
Yeah.
usually from a place of love, but your biggest supporters and your biggest critics at the same time, usually, aren't they?
Yeah, it's a really
Yeah.
it's a really good answer, Izzy, and I think I don't think we could argue with that at all. I do have a couple of theories and some other inspirations, but we'll maybe come back to that later on.
Excellent. So after high school, as you then moved to Cleveland State, you obviously mentioned you were recruited to them for the track team. What kind of made you choose to go there? Was it because you recruited for the track, or obviously there was a basketball available there as well that you were kind of recruited into? What made you go to Cleveland State?
Yeah, so kind of an interesting story, I guess, recruiting process that I had. I only live about 25 minutes from downtown Cleveland, which is where the school is located. Um, and I got recruited by a staff that ended up leaving a month or two before we had to report for summer workouts to college. So I was set on a team and a staff that I was in contact with for, I don't know, a year and a half or maybe a year. And they had convinced me, this would be like the family and all that. And come like a month out, they ended up leaving. So they brought in a new staff, and I continued to pursue Cleveland State, even though I didn't get recruited by this new staff. And that was really it. And it was close to home, and it had like the degree I was going for at the time, which was civil engineering. They had a great engineering school. It was just like a bunch of different things kind of just added up for me. And I wanted to live downtown. I thought that'd be fun to be around all the sporting events and stuff. So it just seemed right at the time.
Yeah, excellent. So then obviously you picked up your basketball again, as you mentioned previously. You had to go to basketball and you couldn't kind of do the track and field. How did your kind of career at college start in terms of your basketball? Because obviously you mentioned the coaching team changed. Did that have any kind of negative impact on you? Or do you think it kind of everything was just as it would have been anyway?
It was not what I expected college to be at all. It was, I don't know. I found out quickly that I didn't find out quickly because I stayed there for 4 years, but it just really wasn't for me. Like that environment, I loved my teammates and stuff, and I loved being around them, and I just never felt like I was really a priority. I don't know. I don't know. It wasn't a good time for me, and I wanted to stay close to home, so I never left, and I was just kind of happy with where I was. Um, and I just kind of forgot. I let myself get beat down for the hours at practice and the games and stuff, and then just like kind of brushed it off and went on with my life. But when COVID granted me my 5th year, I had to take a step back, and I had to finally listen to what my parents have been telling me the whole time and what everybody outside of Cleveland State have been telling me the whole time. I was just like, you need to try something new. Like this clearly has not been working for you. And you have not been enjoying yourself, and you aren't the same person that you were, and all these different things. And I was like, okay, maybe I should just like put my name in the transfer portal and look somewhere else. And so I did. And as soon as I put my name in, I just kind of felt a weight lifted off my shoulders. And it was like immediate. Like I just remember like I had a smile on my face and everything. And I was like, this is definitely the right decision. So I left, and it sucked because I really did enjoy being around my teammates, and I made friends at college, and I had friends that were from high school that went there. So that part sucked, but it was really cool to go through the recruiting process all over again and get to know these coaches and hear about these schools. And then, yeah, I came about USC Upstate through that. So a lot of good happened after those 4 years, and I learned a lot about myself as well.
And I think it's really great just to kind of hear you tell that story, and I guess the reality that comes along with that. Because I mean, whilst this is an American football podcast, as Dan mentioned, I'm a big fan of basketball. I mean, I never really played beyond sort of casual level at university, but I've got a son who's 10 years old. You know, he's already playing under 14 level. He can shoot corner threes consistently. I'm like, wow, you know, I'm 6'6", but he's learned to get good before he gets the height, which is amazing.
Yeah.
So I mean, for him, this is the dream. And I think for lots of kids, both male and female across the world, you know, they would love to think they can go and play college basketball for several years. Obviously, hopefully go pro. But you know, the reality at times can be very different. The other question I maybe want to ask just about Cleveland State before we move on to your time at North Carolina Upstate. You'd obviously touched on COVID. So obviously you started 2018-19 season, then the next couple of years. Obviously that's during, I guess, the COVID era, if you want to call it. So what was that like right in the middle of your college career?
My experience absolutely sucked. It was terrible. Like I contemplated just like quitting basketball at that point. We I tell people the story and they just don't believe me because they're like, there's no way they put you through that. But man, how did it happen? Okay. So we had all these guidelines come out through the school, and then we had even stricter guidelines come out through the athletic department because they wanted people to continue playing sports. Because say you test positive, whoever was near you or whatever, like they get quarantined. So basically you don't have a team, you can't participate in a game, and then they'll reschedule the game. But if you can't get to that game, then you take the loss. So it was just really weird. And so they wanted to be super cautious. So we practiced with masks. We lifted in masks. Our coaches wore gloves. We could only shoot on one basket at a time, like one player at a basket. And then there was a segment of practice where we could actually play each other. Don't ask me how that adds up. But that's how that worked. And then we would have to lift in groups, and then couldn't see my teammates outside of practice. We had online school, so that didn't really matter. But I was basically either in the gym locked in there or in my room locked in there. Couldn't go to the grocery store, couldn't go see my family, even though I chose to go to a school 25 minutes away and chose to see my family. Wasn't allowed to do that. Had to spend all the holidays in my room. They wanted us to wear masks in our rooms with the person that we lived with, who was our teammate. So that was also crazy to me. So I had an interesting time. I didn't really have a life for like a year and a half. And it like threw me into kind of like I don't want to use the word depression, but I was just like down in the dumps. Like most of my teammates were. I think most people were. But for us, it was like we were getting tested 3 times a week. Like somebody was shoving this Q-tip all the way up to our brain 3 times a week. And you couldn't be outside in the fresh air. Like all of these things, it just made it even worse. And then when it came to like gameplay, there was nobody in the stands. The teams would have to go through all these protocols, couldn't shake hands after the game. Like it was so weird. Like it was such a weird time. Yeah, I would not would not go back there if someone paid me to. So yeah, it was I like thinking about it is crazy.
Yeah. Thinking about, obviously you mentioned there about being stuck in your room, and obviously it does affect, I think if across the whole world it affected everybody's mental health, but you're going through a very important part of your life and your development at that point. Like, how did you kind of get yourself through that, and how did you kind of get yourself through the other end of that when you're feeling like that?
I talked to my family a lot during that. I remember I want to say it was Christmas or Thanksgiving. It was one of the maybe it was a birthday. I had like called them for it and I was on Zoom with them for something. It was one of the holidays. I can't even remember what it was. So I would talk to them all the time and they would kind of include me virtually. And then I play video games a lot, and 3 of my best friends that I grew up playing football with actually, and just like, living around and going to school with 3 of them, we would always play video games and we would talk on there just about every single night. So we stayed in touch through that. And honestly, like COVID brought us closer, which is cool because we go on trips now. So 2 of them live across the country, and one's still back home. But yeah, I kind of coped through games and just staying in touch with people that I really love and that love me.
Excellent. It's great to hear. We'll move on to, obviously, that men mentioned you went through the transfer portal, getting back into the recruitment process. I think I read in one of your interviews that South Carolina Upstate wasn't on your radar, but they were on yours. But I think you told the story like you were in Florida and you kind of stopped in for a pit stop. Is that kind of, have I read that right?
Yeah, so it was Coach Steve who reached out to me, and I was down in Florida, and he's like, "Hey, are you interested? Like, it's coming down to the time where I'm going to have to like commit somewhere, and they're going to have to get their summer workout started and things like that." And I was like, I never really like heard of Upstate before. I'll look into it and blah blah blah. And so I looked into it, and they were doing a whole like they were cleaning house. This was a whole new staff that came in. They had one returner from the team, so everybody else was new. So one returner and one assistant coach that was from the last team, and then everybody else was new. So they were recruiting an entire roster and an entire staff. And I ended up talking to Coach Steve, and he's like, "Well, great chat. Like, I'm probably gonna have Coach Will call you or something like that." Coach Will was my head coach, and so out of the blue, he gave me a call and he was talking to me. And the one thing that they both said to me was like that really sold me was that it was going to be a family environment. And all the coaches say that, but they were like, you could just hear it was like a natural, like just like a natural conversation. They didn't have to force it in to check a box or anything like that. And they were like, we want to be like the friends that are going to come to your wedding. You can't invite a building to your wedding. You can't sell it. Like, yeah, you could sell a kid on like this great arena and this great school and stuff, but what are you going to invite the building to your wedding? And so I was like, man, that I've never heard that before, but I really like it. And I talked with them and they were like, well, if you're in Florida and you're driving, we're on the way up. So if you want to just pull over and stop by us for a little visit, we can do that for you. And I was like, I guess. I mean, I'm pretty much passing by. It's not much of a detour. So I stopped there, got to meet them, got to walk the campus, which was beautiful. And Coach Will kind of gave me an ultimatum. He was like, I'll give you like a few days. I'll give you like 3 days to decide because we have to make a decision. We have to fill the roster. And I was like, okay, yeah, I can do that. And so I got home, talked with my parents, and I don't know if it was the night I got back or one day later. I was just like, we were sitting around the couch and I was like, I'm going to commit to Upstate, I think. And they were like, really? I was like, yeah, I'm going to give them a call right now. So I called them and decided to go through with that, which was just a great decision to end my 5th year of college and my 5th year of basketball, because it really was a family environment. And I I had a great time with them, and I love the girls. I love the coaches, and they're on the up right now. So they're doing really well, which I love to see because I got to be a part of building that foundation, which was cool.
When you were going through that process, sorry, Gav, when you go through that process, is there like, what did you have many other offers on the table? Was it a hard choice to make, kind of with the options that you had?
It was kind of hard because I'd been talking to 2 other schools for a while, like basically from the beginning of me entering my name into the transfer portal. So I felt like saying no to them was wrong, but it's like, I need to think about myself. Like, so I had a visit planned that I actually had to cancel because I committed to them. And then a school had reached out right before I think I had went to upstate for the visit. And I was like, man, like, talk about late. But it just, I don't know, everything just seemed right with upstate. So I made that decision, but I did have to, turn down some other schools that really like kind of poured into me, and had a few calls with me, but it just felt right to choose upstate.
Yeah, and I think it's great just kind of, I guess, having that compare and contrast between your time in Ohio and in Cleveland, and then actually moving to South Carolina. Just I guess the tone changes, and of course COVID's a factor in that, but even the environment, can tell just from the way you speak about it. And I guess that really came through in your game. I mean, just looking at your ESPN profile and how the stats, all the numbers went up. You're averaging, you're getting to double figures in your points, your rebounds, assists, steals, all way up. But I guess probably the big thing is actually the minutes as well. Out of so college basketball's 40-minute game, you're playing just under 32. So you're playing most of your time on the court and really one of the key players there. But also the other thing that jumped out to me is, I guess, the teams that you're getting to play against, because I think as part of that season schedule, you came across Virginia Tech, you're playing against University of North Carolina. I don't think you played them, but obviously you're in the same sort of territory as University of South Carolina and Dawn Staley and everything that team's been doing. So yeah, I guess in terms of on the court, what was the season's experience like for you?
It was awesome. That was like a huge thing, is they made sure to schedule schools that were like bigger and better than us on paper and things like that, which was cool. It was a cool experience for me because I had never gotten that at Cleveland State. We would always schedule schools that were like Division twos or like smaller than us, which was very weird as a mid-major to do that. But so yeah, when I got to upstate, to be able to experience that and like playing on the floor that Michael Jordan played on was pretty cool. So, and it was also very cool for the younger girls, the freshmen, to be able to do that, like coming right into college and playing at schools like that. So I was happy for them, and I think they've continued to do that, which is really cool. Usually, like a school of our size would play up, just for the exposure and things like that, and get to experience it. So I had a great time. I had a great season with them, and yeah, the minutes definitely went up, but it, as much as that was really important to me, it was still like I felt like everyone cared about each other there and everyone loved each other, and we could joke around and just go into the office and talk to our coaches about whatever. So that was probably my favorite part. It just all felt like we were like truly a family.
Yeah. I guess maybe just a final question on that last season, because I guess college basketball has maybe been the last sort of level of basketball that I've started to watch. But watching the Final Four last year, both the men and the women, obviously realized that out of the entire country, there's maybe between the men and women, there's about 100 people who go on to play pro. Most of them won't, and you can just see the emotion in these teams. Even the ones that are winning championships, as they realize that for a lot of them, this will be the last time playing. So I guess, what was it like for you in your final games with the Spartans?
I didn't really think about it like in the moment. I didn't really think about it that much, that this was probably it was probably gonna be the end. It was gonna be the end. I just was kind of focused on like each game at hand and just enjoying my time, like living in the moment, quite literally. And when it came down to it and we lost the Big South championships, it just kind of hit me all at once. So I don't know if that was a good thing that I had like planned it to be, like not worried about it till the last minute. But yeah, it definitely hit me all at once, and I had to like sit back in the locker room, and I remember just being like, I cannot believe since I was 7, I played the sport, and like it's all come down to like it's ending right here, and it was a lot, but I wouldn't change it the way everything happened. Obviously, it would have been pretty cool to win a conference championship, but like the way things happened, I wouldn't be here today if things went a different way. So I'm very thankful for it all. And yeah, like you said, a lot of college players are like fighting for a spot in the pros, and they're trying to like give it their best, which is why I think I've always enjoyed watching college more than professional sports, because you can just see the emotion in the players. Like they're really trying to get to the next level and earn a career out of this. So I don't know. I always thought that was really cool with college sports. Like the athletes are fighting for their life to get this next step in their career.
Yeah. Is one thing, something you mentioned there, something, a question. I was going to ask this a bit later on, but you brought someone up that made me actually want to ask you this question. Obviously, you mainly wore the number 23 and you still wear it today to this day. Is that because of a certain Mr. Jordan?
No, it's because of LeBron.
Gav, you were right.
No.
I kind of made the Ohio connection there. I just thought, this is Braun.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I was going on with Gav when he said LeBron from the start, but as soon as you mentioned Michael Jordan, I thought, oh, wait a minute, could be a bit of a curveball here, but yeah, it does make perfect sense that being LeBron, but I just thought I would chance it there. Excellent. I mean, that's great to hear about.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, like Gav says, I mean, obviously, college football, college basketball, any college sport, so you see they're fighting for license. For most of them, you said, that last game is the last game they will play at any sort of level. And so, I mean, it's good that you get the great experience. It's good to hear you kind of talking about that. But what we're here to talk about now is your current career and what you're doing now in terms of the sports world. So, you obviously mentioned you played flag football when you were very, very young. And then you obviously recently got back into it. I listened to the interview, obviously, done with Ashley, and you kind of told the story about how you got back into flag football, but the majority of people, pretty much everybody watching or listening to this, won't know how you got back into flag football. So you let us know the story between like getting in contact with Maddie and how that all worked out.
Yeah, so I kind of followed it throughout college, and I was really looking for it, a women's tackle league, because I played tackle and I never even really thought about flag. Like I did, but I was like, oh, it'd be so fun to play with like women's tackle because I'd never had that before. But then I was like kind of hearing more and more about flag, and I saw NFL flag, and I was like, yeah, this is growing. Like I don't think it's the flag that I remember playing. And so I kind of looked into it and I was like, okay, 5-on-5, this is interesting. Or there's a 7-on-7, this is interesting. And then I found out that there was a U.S. national flag football team. And I was like, no way. Like this is insane. Like there's no way I could go somewhere with this. And so I looked at the roster, and at the time that I was doing that, I lived down here in Charlotte. And our training camps are here in Charlotte. So when I'm looking for this, I'm noticing that there's like these live updates of them at training camp, like these photos coming through, like, oh, our men and women are back together at training camp in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I was like, what? I was like, I could go watch them right now. And unfortunately, I think I don't know what I had, but I wasn't able to go. So I just kind of kept following. But I looked at their roster, and I was like, okay, Maddie is from Charlotte. I'll ask her if she knows of any ways to get into the flag football circuit and things like that. And so I reached out to her through Instagram, just kind of sent like normal message like, hey, saw you're on the team, saw you're from Charlotte, you're an amazing player, like things like that. And where can I get started? I used to play football, but I played tackle, blah, blah, blah. So she kind of pointed me in the right direction, but it was very like, she's like very nice about it. And it was like, here's like a local league. You can start with that and just kind of see what happens. And so I started playing in a Wednesday night league. And I think like 2 games into that, it's co-ed. So 2 games into that, some of the guys were like, do you want to play in our men's league on Tuesday? And I was like, yeah, sure. I would love to just spend my weeks playing football. I would love that. Thank you. So I jumped in with them, and it was Tuesdays and Wednesday nights. And it was honestly like people of all ages. So I got to know them and love playing with them. I took a season off this year, but we'll probably get back together. Through that, we started playing tournaments. So I played in a local tournament last year, this time. So this same tournament I'm about to play this weekend was the first one I played in. And I played with some local girls and some people that I ended up actually knowing from Cleveland. when I was in high school. So we played, and I think a video of me went on Facebook, which is like Facebook's huge with flag football. So a video went up, and it was me trying to one-hand a ball, but I didn't even catch it. But it was just like everybody was like, "No way she would even try that." And so people started seeing, and they're like, "Yeah," in the comments talking about me, and I was like, "Oh, this is kind of interesting." I didn't even think people like really cared about what I was doing. And then Madison got videos of me playing somehow. I don't even know how. And she's like, "Girl, you didn't even tell me you were good. Like, what? Why would you not say that?" And I was like, "Why would I come across and just be like, yeah, I'm so good at football. Put me on your team." Like, I'm not going to do that. So she's like, "I got to get you on our club team." And at the time, I didn't even know what club was. Like, I didn't know that was a thing where you would travel the country and play with girls from all over the place. So she filled me in. I was like, "Yeah, I'm down to do whatever." Like, so I started playing with OBB, and then we traveled around. And that was pretty much it. I started playing with them. I got scouted through the digital combine. So I had to like submit a bunch of stuff for USA Football, just like anybody else who really didn't get scouted in person would do. So it was like 20-yard dash. It was a 5-10-5, highlights of you playing, things like that, broad jump. And the coaches would look at that. And then come January, we were at Tampa Worlds. So it's USA flag. It's probably the biggest tournament of the year. There's like thousands of teams involved. And one of the scouts got to see me play in person down there. And I think I played pretty well there. So I think that helped me out. And then I got my invite to trials, and then made the 18, and then made the 12, and kind of happened just like that, all really quickly.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, that's been like you say, your first tournament was a year ago, and suddenly you're, as we're going to talk about, you played at the World Championships. I think one of the quotes from Ashley from that interview is that she said you took the flag world by storm and you changed the game. Hearing that from one of your teammates and someone who's played the game, how did that make you feel when she said that?
I didn't even know what to say. I was just like, man, especially coming from Ashley, because she's been in flag so long, and she's really helped like grow the game herself, just because like she grew up playing with boys in flag football and pursued it at such a young age when girls didn't really do that at such a young age. So hearing it come from her with all her knowledge at such a young age, like it meant a lot to me. And I look up to all these girls, even if they're younger than me. I think like they all have so much knowledge of the game, and I'm always willing to learn, which was like, yeah, it just meant a lot hearing it from her.
Excellent. So obviously I mentioned that you kind of get invited to the national trials. And so when did you receive the invite to go to trials, and when was the trials?
Trials was March. March, and everything happens here in Charlotte, so I got lucky with that. I just have to
Meant
drive
to be.
20 minutes north. So that worked out. But I got invited. I think invites came out pretty close to when Tampa Worlds ended. Maybe a few weeks after that, or probably a few weeks after that. And yeah, it was 60 women, and it was freezing cold rain, which is like not usual for Charlotte, I'm going to be honest. And of course, the weekend we have this where we're like each competing for a spot on this team, it's freezing cold. No one's wearing gloves because you couldn't even catch with gloves on. But it was like miserable. We just like no one wanted to be out there. It was so bad. But here we are.
So we're obviously going to trials, and obviously the weather. Obviously, me and Gav are used. That's the weather we get every day in Scotland. We've played flag football in all weathers. I mean, you don't get any excuses. Balls are absolutely solid because it's freezing. But in terms of the
Yeah.
actual trials, was it over a weekend then, or was it a kind of one day thing?
Yeah, so it was 3 days. It was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah.
Pretty sure, yeah, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And my dad came down from Ohio to watch me, and then my boyfriend went. But it was like, so 60 people, 60 women, 60 men, and we got split up into teams. It was basically a lot of scrimmages. Like we did skill work and stuff, but it was a lot of like seeing who meshed with who and what combinations work best and things like that. We did some one-on-ones. So we did a lot of different, like, it was really just a lot of different who meshed with who. And it was cool to get to play with girls that I never had played with before, but played against. So I got to meet a lot of new people, and we also did testing there as well. So we had our, like I submitted in the game time digital combine. We did our broad jumps, our 20-yard dash, our 5-10-5, like things like that. We did all of that, and we got like actually timed by the U.S. Performance Center, which was really cool to see all the technology they used. So that was, I think, the first day, and it was, I want to say it was 2 days. So we'd have like a practice, we'd eat lunch, and then we'd have another practice, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, it was over a weekend.
I mean, Gav, back when me and you played flag football, the criteria for being selected was that you just turned up for training because there was only enough of you to make one team up.
Yeah, I think that's it. And even the, I mean, I'm not even going to try and match up to Izzy's record here, but I mean, I played, I think, one tournament for Team Scotland like 20 years ago, and yeah, I think I had to travel like 20 miles for the tryout. It was a very, very different time back then. And I guess maybe the question that I would have is, I mean, obviously Scotland, I mean, now we kind of go up to Team GB level, and we have the Lions, both for the men and the women. But even still, Britain as a whole is a much smaller country than the US. So I guess, how does that, I guess, dynamic operate in terms of bringing people together from all over the country? You're maybe not seeing each other all that often, but do you need to prepare for a world championship?
Yeah, it's tough. That was something that I had to get used to coming from like college basketball where you basically live with your teammates. So I had to get used to that. We met on Zoom pretty often. We would do film sessions on Zoom. We would go over like our playbook on Zoom, and everything like that was through Zoom. So we did a lot of online meetings, but then we had some girls, a lot of them are Texas based. So we had some of them get together, and they would train together if they were there. Certain tournaments were still going on throughout the country that we would meet up at. So we got to see each other in club. And then we got gifted a trip to LA to watch our junior teams play in the Continental Cup, which was very, very cool. So we got to experience that. And at the same time, we were given practice time there, which was super helpful because it was one more time than we would have. So we had like a small mini training camp while we got to also support our junior kids that are going to be coming up and competing for the adult national team, which was awesome. It was very warm. I've never been to LA, but it was really cool. We were at like the LA Galaxy fields. So it was a good time. But yeah, it's tough to like have to connect with everyone online, not be able to see them and train with them. So we all lifted on our own. We were given a program. It was just like honor code. Like you have to do it on yourself, and we'll trust you to do it. And you're going to train on the field, and yeah, we'll just trust you until you get to training camp, and then we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, when we spoke to two of the guys from Team GB last week, we had them on for kind of chat as well. And they were basically, because what Gav says, because we're such a geographically small country, like they were having meetups once every month in the lead up to the World. So it's a massive difference in preparation between two different countries, especially when you guys are the leading country in the sport in terms of the development of sport starting in that country. So it's really interesting. Because the size of the country, trying to get these all together is difficult. So the contrast between a country that's not massive in the sport and a country that kind of leads in the sport is quite big in terms of the preparation, which is very interesting to see. You mentioned there, obviously, through the trials and it broke down into it and finally getting to get selected to go to the Worlds. When you got that kind of, was it a call, or was it in person? How did you find out that you got into the squad?
So from the 60 to the 18, so after the initial trials, it was you all went your separate ways, went back home. Everybody went across the country back home. And I think it was maybe a week later, we got a phone call from the coaches, whether you made it or not. And I was like going for a walk with my boyfriend, and they called me, and I was like, oh my God, we have to stop. I need to pick this up. And so it was like a FaceTime with both of them, and told me I made the team. And I just like couldn't believe it. Like I was just like sitting there. I was like, no way, this is happening right now. And then so that was making the 18. So then we had our first training camp where they were going to cut it down to 12. And that was in person. And through all of this, we've been having a film crew with us, which was like really cool. And they've done like UFC backstage, I think, and NFL film stuff. So they're like really good at what they do. And they're kind of doing like a documentary style thing. So they were following us around all weekend at this training camp. And the very last day, we were being told, like we were getting brought into rooms and being told if we made it or not on the 12th to be able to travel to Finland. And the cameras were in the rooms. And I remember it was just so like, we were like, girls were coming out and they were like, the camera was in my room. Like this was the weirdest thing ever. And I was the last person to get told. So I kind of did the math for that. I was like, all right, well, this adds up. I guess I must have made the team. So I go in and the camera's like right in my face and there's a boomstick like right above my head. And I'm like, oh my God. But yeah, they told me, and I remember I just like, I started crying because I was just like, oh my God, like everything happened so fast. Like I cannot believe that I'm sitting here right now being told this. And I just had to like stop myself. I was like, honestly, I don't know why I'm crying. This is a really happy moment for me, guys. I apologize. But like, so it was just like a lot of emotions throughout the whole process. And it really did suck to see your teammates who were told no, like have to come back. We're all in the same room. So they had to come back to the room and get their luggages and go off to the airport. And it just like sucked. Like as much as you wanted to be happy for you and the people who did make it, it was like, this is really just like so, it's just so sad to see. But hopefully like they took that and made them stronger. And this is going to be like a really fun trials next year.
Yeah. And I think maybe just one thing just to come in, just taking that all and hearing you speak about that, because I think it's absolutely coming through in what you say, but just for the benefit of people maybe listening to this rather than watching in the YouTube stream is, first of all, Izzy, when you mentioned about when you first got the phone call, we can see your eyes popping out your head, even retelling that story now, but just smiles really all throughout this story. I think just, you know, it's great to see. I think just even how you retelling that, you know, I guess the warm feeling that really brings out, and you know how much that means.
Yeah, it was very special. Like and the coaches are great. Like I'm just like everything fits so perfectly. Like it was a great season. I'm very thankful to had to have been part of it.
Yeah. So I mean, that's from September last year to now. Obviously, say that tournament's this weekend. That's been an absolute whirlwind year for you. Obviously,
Yeah.
culminating obviously to go into Finland and playing in the Worlds. I mean, leading up to obviously you mentioned that you've done all your preparation kind of over Zoom and stuff like that, and now we got to see each other. How far out from the tournament did you guys travel to Finland?
We So we had our 3 training camps throughout the year and then or the half year. And then right before we had our 3rd training camp, I want to say we got to Finland Monday of the week that we were supposed to play. So I think we were there for a whole week. I want to say. Honestly, all the days at that point were like just meshed together. So
Yeah.
I was just happy to be there. I didn't even know what day it was. I didn't know what time it was, what day it was. I just saw the sun was in the air and I was like, okay, I should be awake. Sun goes down. Okay, I'm going to bed.
So in terms of the camp, obviously when you got to Finland, what was the mood in the camp like when you got there?
We were so excited. And we were talking about it, like, has it really hit you yet that you're like on the team, you're about to compete for a world championship? Like we would go around the team and talk about that. And it was really when I think like we got there and we started practicing and like I was like, man, we're really in another country and we're about to compete in the flag football world championships, like something that I've always loved all my life. And like now we're here and I get to represent the red, white, and blue. Like it's nothing cooler. So we were just really excited. We were spending a lot of time together because we never had really gotten that. Like we had our training camps and stuff and we had our Zoom calls, but to have a whole week together where you're literally living together, you're eating together, you're doing everything together, it was really nice. And we were just extremely happy. And we always have a joke, like our offense is very like go with the flow, easy, like whatever. And our defense is so analytical and so like set to a schedule and things like that. So it was funny to see that like in person and how that worked. But everybody was really just having a good time. It didn't even matter. Like, yeah, and we had obviously the men were there and our whole USA football staff was there. So everybody was just spending a ton of time together and it was awesome. And my family got to come out for most of the tournament, which was great because I hadn't seen them in a while. But yeah, it was fun.
In the lead up to the tournament, what kind of prep do you do as a squad in terms of like watching game tape or scouting your opposition? Because obviously, a point that we spoke about before, in terms of flag football, there's not a lot of game tape out there in terms of from a national team perspective. Obviously, in the US, it might be a bit more from domestic because you see each other quite a bit playing at club level. But how do you kind of prepare for a game against Ireland, for example? Like, there probably isn't a lot of game tape available on them. What kind of scouting and game tape preparation did you do?
Yeah, so we watched I want to say we watched a game from the tournament. That's usually what we ended up doing just because it was like most recent rosters and players on the team. Leading up to the tournament, we were watching the older film where I think teams may have had different rosters at the time. So we were trying to like think about who was still going to be there, things like that. But once we got to the tournament and we could actually go out and watch games or like get the games pulled up online, we chose to do that just because it was like most recent, see how they were playing. So we watched film on every single team, some teams twice, and we practiced the days leading up to the first game. So we were there practicing the whole time, and we had, I think our defense had like scheduled calls just like because they do that. They just like get together and watch film for fun. So they did that on their own, but we usually met like offense and defense separate.
And I guess maybe one of the reflections we had from our previous interview with Liam and Ollie from Team GB is, I guess, it's probably a regional dynamic to that as well. So they'd mentioned that some of the European teams, they'd seen at the European Championships, or they'd even cross paths in various different tournaments at club level over the course of the years. I mean, is it maybe similar for yourselves, like the likes of Mexico and Canada, you probably have a bit more knowledge on, but when it comes to, say, Australia, Finland, not so much?
Yeah, not at all. Like we just knew what we had on film, like whatever we could find, that's what we had. We didn't know much about it, especially me. I'd never played in like an international tournament. So I was like just taking what I could get, whatever they were telling me, I was absorbing, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I believe you, like this and that. But like some of the girls, most of the team was on the team last year. Most of the girls, so they got to compete against the Mexico team, the Canada team, Chile, Panama. They competed all against them. So they like had known kind of what they were going to do, but I know those rosters changed a little as well. So they had like somewhat of a knowledge, but yeah, like teams that we have never even seen before, it was different trying to prep for that. But we watched film on everybody and we took notes on everybody.
Excellent. Well, Gav, do you want to take us through the tournament then, Gav?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, it's probably worth saying that we're about 3 weeks removed from the tournament now, so we're not going to do like a full analysis in every game. But spoiler alert: USA won. Yeah, we'll go through kind of in phases first of all. So, I mean, in terms of the group phase, you had France, Ireland, Sweden, Australia in the pool phase. It came through 4-0, topped the group. I guess what maybe stood out for me is that first game against the French, you go off for 100 yards, get a touchdown. Does that feel good, especially when you're kind of coming back into the sport to start the tournament so strong, both for the team but also on a personal level?
Yeah, it was great. Like I honestly didn't even know what stats I had. I was just like out there playing the game that I love. I was just enjoying myself. Like it was just fun to me. And I was just happy to be there. So when I saw that after the game, I was like, oh man, I didn't even realize that. Like, wow. But I think that was like my mindset for the whole thing. I was just like happy to be out there and compete with my teammates, that like it was something we had been waiting for all this time and it finally had happened. But yeah, we did great. And I found out that I guess I did pretty good. So, but I didn't realize it at the time. I was just living in the moment, excited to be there.
And I think maybe one other thing that just jumped out to me from the pool phase is in all the stats, your world championships is something in common with my flag career, which is you had 100% completion rate on your passing. I think all time I'm 2 of 2 for 12 yards. I think you did a little bit better actually. I think I saw you had a 33-yard pass in the pool phase. So that's that must have been pretty nice as well, just to show you the arm to go with the hands.
Yeah, we were prepping for that. We were like jokingly putting it in, and we're like, Oh, because my coach Saeed, he didn't really know I could throw, and I really can't throw. I can just like throw a ball far. I can't accurately because like that's not for me. So if you just tell me just chuck the ball up there and hope someone gets it, especially if Madison's down there, I was like, sure, say less, I'll do it. And we ran through it a few times at the training camps and stuff, and he would always ask, "Oh, is your arm warm? Is your arm warm?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I can always chuck a ball, whatever." And so he was like, "Yeah, we're gonna run the play," and I was like, "Oh, right now?" And he's like, "Yeah, why not?" And I was like, "Okay, sure." And honestly, it was the best ball that I've ever thrown outside of practice. Like even with practice, it was probably the best ball I've thrown. So yeah, that was pretty fun. I'm glad he did that.
I think as that come back to there's also a running joke within your camp about the size of your hands. I'm sure that helped as well.
Yeah, they always joke about that. We were actually on a Zoom call last night and they were joking about that.
So I guess the one thing as well is obviously maybe Vanita doesn't need to be worried too much about who's going to be under centre at the World Games next.
Yeah.
Awesome. We'll move on then, because I guess obviously you came through the pool phase. It's really strong. So just to recap those results: 37-6 over France, 59-6 against Ireland, 40-6 Sweden, 48-6 against Australia. So pretty good defensive showing, only giving up one touchdown and consistently offense. We then moved into the knockouts, and that started off with a game against the hosts where it was a 61-0 shutout. So obviously that's when you're getting into that elimination phase. Now it's really, it's win or go home. So did you feel a mindset shift going into that latter half of the tournament?
I think so, yeah. I mean, we were still trying to we had 3 goals in mind, and that was 1 to win our pool, then get top seed, and then win gold. So we were just focused on getting those goals and notching those through. And then when bracket style play started, we really locked in on it, and we were like, this is it. But I don't think we really changed much. We had our game plan set, and we were, I don't know. I feel like we played pretty similar to how we always played until obviously we got to Spain, and that was the first punch in the face we really took. And it was just something different that they were showing that we weren't really prepped for, but we adjusted pretty quickly. But yeah, when tournament play started, it was probably same way we were going through with everything else. We just kind of really honed in on it.
And I think maybe for people listening who weren't familiar with, I guess, how the tournament went, so that was, in fact, your closest game of the tournament. So the US ended up winning over Spain 18-14 in the quarters, but actually Spain, I think, led 7-6 at the half. So, I mean, certainly it was all to play for, but that's the one time you maybe think, no, the favourites could be on the ropes here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I mean, we never had a doubt. I think we were we had to kind of, okay, this is legit. We need to figure something out here. But we were never man, we could lose this game. So we just locked in. We made adjustments. I think we were overthinking a lot of things on offense, and we figured it out. We kind of just stuck with the usual and worked it down the field. And our defense really locked in, did what they had to do, got some stops for us. So it just really, we had to regroup and kind of just focus up, because I don't know what we were doing the first half, but it was not what we usually do. So we really had to lock in after that.
Awesome. So I guess getting through that tight game against Spain, I guess, really set you up for the final four, to kind of borrow a basketball phrase. So we had, I guess, big names in that last couple of matches against Austria, which was actually at the final match up in the men's bracket. We won 40-41, to 24, logging a touchdown on the way. So I guess, how did that feel coming through that and setting yourself up for the finals?
It felt good to come back from the Spain game where we were just things weren't really working the way we wanted them to work. Then to come and do that, defense locked up, and then offense, we just kept going down and we had to keep scoring, and we kept scoring. So to keep your foot on the gas and do that, especially before the gold game, was like really important going into it because we had all the momentum we needed. So I think it was a perfect setup. It was what we could ask for. And then when we found out we were playing Mexico, it was just that much better. So
excellent. And I guess before we get into the finals, so obviously USA and Mexico, it's a strong rivalry in various different sports. In soccer, football, for us, it's a big game, and there's been a long recent history in various different flag championships, both with the Worlds and the World Games, kind of coming down to the US and Mexico. So I think, if I recall correctly, this is before your time, Mexico won the World Games against the Americans a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I think it was Birmingham.
Yep.
I think that would have been it. And I think that was the only time they've ever beat us.
Yeah. Let's make that clear. One time we think the Mexico got the edge.
Correct.
I guess one thing that we've kind of been, I think, having a friendly joke about on the pod is in the NFL is the Kansas City Chiefs, who are an amazing team and have not really done anything to upset people. But having had that success in 3 Super Bowls in 5 years and 7 straight conference championship games, there's a lot of people that are getting maybe a wee bit tired of that success and don't want to see them do quite so well. We kind of joke about them being the bad guys or the baddies. There was a poll that was carried out before the final, where 88% of the people that responded said that Mexico said they said they expected Mexico to win, maybe they just wanted them to win. I guess, is that a dynamic that kind of came through on your side? Do you lean into that? Do you not care? What was your thought in the camp seeing that?
So, yeah, we got told that. I think as we were walking out, like right before we got announced to come out on the field, someone told us that. One of our staff members was like, "Hey, just so you know, like this was what happened." Like, and then showed us like the picture of the screen or whatever, and we were all like, "Pass that down the line, pass that down the line," because everybody was like, "What the heck?" Like, I mean, I'll feed into it. Like I'll definitely use it for fuel, but at the same time, like, I don't know. I'm probably just gonna stick to like, I don't want to over psych myself out or like get too overhyped, too low or too high. I just want to stay like kind of right here in the middle range and pretty level headed. But yeah, that definitely sparked a little something under everybody. And then we definitely brought it back up after we won. So it just felt good because you just love proving people wrong. So.
No, and I think that's a really great point. I mean, we make the point about the Chiefs and Pat Mahomes, and there's some amazing players on that Mexico team. I mean, obviously Diana Flores, the quarterback in particular, getting a lot of attention, and rightly so, because they have had great success and they're inspiring a lot of people in terms of their own performance. But I guess even considering the sort of the recent results, yeah, you're thinking, okay, maybe that's a 50-50, but there's probably a bit more than just expert opinion going into that particular result.
Of course, yeah. No, we didn't. We knew it was like, or depended on who voted and whatnot. But yeah, we definitely took it and ran with it. And then after we were joking about it still.
Awesome. And I guess then that really leaves the final. So as you say, there's no surprise in terms of the score. USA 31, Mexico 18. So definitely competitive game, but a reasonably comfortable win for yourselves in the end. You certainly caught a lot of attention through a certain Hall of Famer, Randy Moss, with your touchdown grab in that game, or I think it's possibly your 1-point conversion that they highlighted on the reel. I guess I think let's give it to you to talk us through that game. What was that like, playing in the stadium, playing for the Gold?
I mean, being in that stadium was really cool. like having all the supporters and even all the other countries that were watching that were there to support, just to like watch the game itself, not whether to support us or Mexico, just there to watch was cool. Kind of seeing like the flag world all come together for one thing. And then it was just like a great atmosphere in general. And I really didn't think too much about the stage I was on. Like, we're at the biggest stage for flag football, but I was like, didn't want to get too in my head about that. So I was just out there, out to play the game, out to win the game. And when our defense came out and got that stop, it was just like perfect. Like, now we just have to score, and it's no big deal. And we'll end up winning this game. And they really locked in, and we locked in on offense. I know we had a few like points where we probably overthought the way we were doing things. Probably could have done some different stuff. We talked about it last night as a team, but I mean, defense absolutely came out and did really well. And we were just there to back them up. So, yeah.
I suppose the analytics meetings that they keep having obviously worked in.
Right. Right.
Maybe the other thing that I guess, I mean, you mentioned having that opportunity to come back and reflect on it. So thinking about the final in particular, being in the stadium and having the full commentary team and having the game streamed across the world, but even for the tournament as a whole, one of the things that really impressed me and Dan, and I think everyone else watching back home, is I guess the difference that presentation makes to this game. Because when we started playing, I think the first game that myself and Dan ever played 20 years ago was in an Ash Park, that kind of orangey, rusty blaze color. Really don't want to fall on at all. Played on sort of hillsides and public parks and things like that. But then to actually see it where the pitch is fully lined, you've got the 10 and the 20-yard markings, there's an end zone with paint, you've got the graphics, the clock, and for the final, you've got the commentary team. It's funny how these are all kind of, in a way, they're peripheral, because the game hasn't changed at all, but you put these things around, you think this is a legit sport. I guess obviously you're kind of in the zone, you're on the fields when the games have been played, but coming back, have you had a chance to, I guess, watch any of the action back, and what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it was, you said it great. Like the way that it was produced, into being like it is a real sport, but to produce it that way and show the audience that is really cool. It makes them seem like they're really watching something important, because it is important and it deserves that. So seeing all like the marketing around the outside of the field and all the media people and the coverage that we had and the commentators, like it was very, very well done. And seeing like older videos of different championships and how far it's come is really, really cool, and how many people are buying into it. And then to be in that stadium with the ski slopes, like it was very awesome. And I thought the production itself was really well done, especially with the screens. Yeah, they did a great job. I think and the reffing crew did a great job. So all around, great experience.
Obviously, it sounds like a stupid question to ask me in terms of how did you feel when you won, but for yourself, basically you took up the sport again a year ago this weekend to play at a competitive level again. Obviously, you mentioned some of your teammates have been playing since they were kids, but for you to basically get back into a sport that you love and within 12 months to be a world champion, how does that feel?
Amazing. I tell people it's like a full circle moment, from being like 7 years old and just playing the sport because I love it, and then coming here and continuing to play the sport because I love it, and playing on the biggest stage and winning a gold medal for my country is something I never thought would happen and something I always wished it could happen. Um, so now I'm here doing that, and I get to wear the gold medal around my neck with my teammates, and putting in all that work, I think, too, and finally just having it all pay off is like a weight lifted off our shoulders. And it was just like finally we did it, after all of that. So very thankful to be here, especially with the awesome staff that we have at USA Football, and even the men's team. To have both of us come out with gold is a pretty cool
Yeah.
thing.
We can't let you go without. We know you've got your medal there. Is it? Let everybody see it. We know you've got it there. Let everybody that's watching back the video. How cool is that?
Wow.
It's not even that's like it's not something you would get out of a lucky bag. That's a proper gold medal. That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's kind of heavy. Kind of got some weight to
it. How long was it before you took it off after you won it?
Oh my gosh, I think we wore it all night. I think we literally wore it all night. Like we were in them the whole time. We were joking. We were like, "Who's gonna break their medal first?" Like after this, like during the celebrations and stuff, we're like, "I wonder who's gonna break their medal first."
This is just a couple of questions just to kind of finalise talking about the World Championships. And something we asked the guys from GB, which was really interesting to hear. Like, obviously, you went over there and you've played against teams that you've never played before. You obviously got to watch, I'm assuming you got to watch other games as well. Was there any countries out there that you kind of were surprised by in terms of how much they've developed as a country? Or maybe a country you thought, wow, I didn't know they played this way, the sport this well. Is there anybody kind of impressed you that you can maybe wouldn't have expected to?
I think, I mean, personally, like I've never seen anybody play really. So it was all an awesome experience for me to see how other countries played. I think that was one of my favorite parts about being there, was learning about everyone's flag journeys and what they do in their country to promote the game. So seeing their styles of play was really cool. I think I really enjoyed playing against Spain and watching them play. I always love watching Japan. I think their offensive scheming is very different. And they play some mind games, and I was like trying to take notes. I'm like, these are some sick plays. So I always love watching them play. And then on the men's side, I think Italy surprised me, because I remember watching that game with our men. So that was pretty cool. But honestly, everyone was fun to watch. Like it was a really cool experience all around. And I could not believe, I swear every day I was seeing different teams, like new countries that I didn't even know were here. So that was fun. And I think I loved playing against Ireland as well, because they were just fun group to be around. And we actually took their celebration that they used on us. And we told them that we were going to do it. So we had them explain how to properly do it so we could do it in the gold medal game. I think Madison or someone ended up doing it. But that was fun. We were joking with them on the sideline the whole time. So yeah, I mean, seeing everyone, all these other countries for one thing and it being flag football was great.
It's very true. I mean, we obviously, often hear the phrase, say the NFL is a copycat league, but I think it shows that it happens at every level of the sport, whether it's actually stuff out the playbook or celebration. So that's really cool to see. And I guess this is the funny thing about the tournament, because actually the way the schedule broke down. So of course we were following the GB team quite closely, but they didn't really cross paths with the US at all along the way. But one team that did come up that you mentioned was Japan, and yeah, their offensive scheme in particular was just fascinating to watch, because there's always been a bit of trickery in flag football, just trying to open things up. I mean, I've seen people try to run like the read option, certainly for our old club, but Japan was really just another level. I mean, it was almost bordering on, I guess, rugby, the way that we're kind of shifting the ball around. And even though you still only get that one forward pass, just the number of laterals and motions that you would make, you could tell it was just buying even just a split second of confusion on opposing defenses. And I think, again, just making that point about copycat competitions, is that going to influence your playbook going forward?
I have no idea, honestly. I know Saeed has a ton of stuff up his sleeve already, so I trust him to do the right thing. Him and MK on defense. I know they'll always have some fun stuff for us, like when I get to throw the ball. I don't know if that'll ever happen again, but it was fun when it happened. But yeah, I trust them to like always. I mean, our playbook is massive. Like we have stuff I never even seen yet. So we call it the Bible. And we go off of that. So he'll probably add some more things in. That's just what he does. He loves studying football and, always trying to make us better, which is great in a coach.
And I think maybe one other question I have before we move on is, I guess with, you know, yourselves being in Scotland and probably knowing the GB team better than anyone, did you get a chance to catch any of the Lions or the Lionesses matches at the tournament? Did you have any thoughts on how they performed?
We did not. I didn't get to see either team play, honestly. I did not. And it was crazy because like everything was happening all around the same fields, but like when we weren't really like during the game times when we weren't out there, we were honestly all together in the rooms or we're studying film or we were eating. So we only got to catch a few games on the side unless it was like us watching our men, which we were trying to support them a lot, or we were going to scout a team that we were playing. So I didn't really get to see anybody that we didn't run into and play.
So you mentioned there about the playbook in terms of maybe throwing a pass in the future. You should maybe just tell me you're not throwing any more, just like you. 1 for 1, 34 yards in the World Championship. That's it, no more.
We'll just end on that. I'll go 1 for 1.
A topic of conversation as it's come up from some of the GB players since the tournament was around mental health in this sport. And obviously this is a sport that's suddenly been thrown straight into the spotlight. Obviously we'll come on to talk about the Olympics in a minute, but it's a sport that we went from basically playing in public parks to playing at World Championships and at going to the Olympics. A couple of the players in the GB team mentioned that stuff that had happened in terms of anxiety and lack of sleep and stuff like that. In terms of your team, both men's and women's, if you're aware, like how did your coaching and the Team USA staff kind of help you with those sort of things?
Yeah, they have amazing resources for us. At our training camps, we got to meet with dietitians and like a psychiatrist, like a team doctor for our mental health. And he taught us some breathing exercises. And then our dietitians taught us some ways to properly eat right and how to fuel our body, which is always great to have that. And that was at every training camp. So we always took that. They would email us pamphlets that we could read. And I know some of the girls actually still do the breathing exercises before games, after games. So yeah, we took that. And it was weird being in Finland with the time change and everything. Like you talked about sleep. That was a huge thing for us. Like we were really trying to make sure we got our sleep because like you're not gonna be able to perform at such a high level without good sleep. So I think some people were using those tools to be able to sleep properly and things like that, which was great. And I'm happy that we were provided with that.
Yeah, and maybe just a follow-up from me in terms of an observation is, I mean, we are, as we've kind of alluded to, myself and Dan, we've been involved in flag for over 20 years now, and it's something that started really small for us, just a bit of fun. The presentation has evolved so much, and obviously social media is now a massive factor in that as well, which is great for the promotion of the sport, but it is still ultimately an amateur game. So when you're seeing people, or knowing that people are watching in live streams and commenting, and that maybe they're loving things, maybe they're not liking other things quite so much. I guess sometimes we forget that it is still an amateur sport, and all of the players are going back to families and day jobs. I guess, do you kind of have any reflections on how, I guess, the increased profile of the sport plays into the player's mindset?
Yeah, so you're asking about like how is the growth of it, like the
yeah, I think there's 2 prongs. Yeah, I think there's obviously been a lot of growth in the sport, but also how does that kind of tally with the individual players' mindsets, particularly in terms of mental health? Because obviously we have the LA games coming up. The profile is only going to grow, but as far as I'm aware, there's not very many players that are actually collecting a salary for playing flag at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a huge part of it. Everybody on our team has a full-time job. Like no one's getting sponsorship deals or anything like that to be able to pay for their living accommodations or their food or anything like that. So having to take off work to go and compete in these championships was tough. You're missing out on a whole paycheck, a whole week worth of work. And it's just tough, like to have to, and then get back on that grind of your job and then have to, after you work a 9 to 5, you're going to go to the gym and train. So it's a lot. And with the Olympics coming up, it's going to be even tougher because it's going to be such a high profile sport, but at the same time, you're still not going to get paid just because it's in the Olympics. Like maybe you'll get a sponsorship deal here and there, but I mean, you're still going to have to work your normal 9 to 5 and grind in and out on the field and in the office. So it's a lot on a player, on a person in general. So you just kind of have to like step back and still find time for yourself, which is something that I always have to put first. And that's something that I learned in college is when basketball really took over for me. I just kind of had to step back and be like, okay, I need to find time for myself or I'm not going to be happy. So that was when I reached out to my friends and had to get with them and my family, and I would stay in contact. And it was just things that would, like release you from sport or from work. Just a nice like relaxation type thing.
No, it's great to hear the way you managed to cope with that, Izzy. And kind of, it's, like Gav says, this is a sport that's now being played at the elite level without the elite level funding, without the elite level support. So let's hope over the next 4 years, at least anyway, that changes and kind of you guys get the kind of support in terms of financially, especially anyway, going forward anyway. So as we lead in towards the Olympics, that leads us in very nicely. So I think it was just about a year ago, October 2023, they announced that flag football was going to be come to the Olympics and played on the grandest stage of all. So like I said, from me and Gav playing in public parks now, we don't know where it's going to be played in LA, but just imagine playing somewhere like the Rose Bowl or something like that. Do you know what I mean? It's just going to be amazing. I think you mentioned you were playing at a tournament in Phoenix when it was announced. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, I was in the Lynn Lewis tournament, and I was playing with OBB, and we all stayed in pretty much. We were all in the same house. So I think it was the morning of the last day, if I'm not mistaken. It got announced like overnight, and we all woke up to it, and we were like, "Oh my God! Like, no way this is happening!" Like finally. And I remember the girls who were actually on the national team at the time, they had to like make a short video for the announcement. So they all had to get their USA gear on and go into the other room and make a video for it, which I thought was really cool. And seeing them do that, I was just like, man, I really want to do that someday. Like I want to be that person. So yeah, I remember all of us were just like, couldn't believe it. We were talking about it the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, within obviously there was kind of we wouldn't have heard much of it over here. There was kind of a bit of murmurs here and there, but over in the US, was there a lot of rumor, a lot of chat about that it was potentially going to happen? Was it looking likely, or was it still just a case of this might happen?
Yeah, it was always like on the radar that they would be like, this could possibly be an Olympic sport. And I think that was like the tagline to get kids into the sport too at the time. They were like, this may be in the Olympics. Like, you're gonna want to join, you're gonna want to do this, like, because you could possibly be an Olympian one day through this sport. So people would say that, and then I want to say like 2 weeks or 1 week leading up to it, it really kind of kicked into gear, and they were like, okay, this is serious. They're gonna vote on it. And they're going to vote on the other sports getting included as well. Flag football is on the ballot. And so I think they were trying to just spread awareness with those weeks leading up and sharing social media posts and the NFL backing it, which is always great to see them helping out because they have such a big following. So yeah, it was a lot of talk leading up to it, like the 2 weeks out, I want to say. And yeah, and then the morning that they voted, we heard good news. So I really couldn't believe it. It's very cool. It was very
Yeah,
cool. And it's
I think
crazy
obviously.
because now that
Oh, you go,
it's like
sorry.
it's an Olympic sport now, but there's still states in the United States that don't sanction it as a high
Yeah.
school sport, which is just crazy to me that they wouldn't follow suit with the Olympics. But hopefully that down the line becomes like, all across 50 states. But as of now, I think it's only maybe half, if that.
Wow.
It's part of the Olympic legacy. You'd hope that something like that would then happen in terms of taking it right back down to like the kids level. Cause I think it was Ashley was saying it like gets to about 13 or 14 for girls, and then that's it really. So you'd hope, especially on the female side of the sport, that this can be rolled out across the whole country, because you can't just do it for one Olympics and then that's it. Do you know what I mean? That defeats the purpose of the Olympic legacy. In terms of they want this to go on, and obviously 4 years is not a lot of time to get into high schools and colleges to kind of look at players coming through, going to high school and college over the next couple of years with that goal in mind. So for you guys, is you guys that are playing the sport at the moment are the ones that are going to be competing for these spots for early 2028.
Yeah. And you said, sorry, I didn't understand the last part. Could you say that again?
Yeah, so I'm saying like the moment, because there isn't a massive like pipeline of talent coming through from schools because they're not getting to play at high school. So it's the girls that you're playing with at the moment, your current teammates that are in the squads at the moment. It's you guys that will be competing for places on that Olympic squad, realistically.
Yes, there are still younger kids competing. It's just not sanctioned to receive funding.
Right.
So they'll just have to play. Like I know there's schools here in North Carolina. A girl that I actually play some club with, who I'll play with this weekend, she plays in high school, and they have to just pay for everything, and they have to fundraise through the community. So that's really it. But a lot of schools hesitate to add it to their sport board because or they hesitate to like get kids into it because it's just all funding through families and organizations versus like the state funding. So they'll still play and compete, and they'll still do club across the country like we would. But the younger girls usually compete in the younger divisions. Then once you're 18 and up, you're in a women's division unless you play up and you're just that good. So they'll still compete for it, but in order to be on the adult team, you have to be 18 by a certain date, or 18 by a certain date.
I guess the other thing with the Olympics now coming into play, though, is I guess I don't want to say legitimacy because I already perceive flag football as a legitimate sport, but I guess in terms of the wider public perception, the Olympics really does raise that profile, not just in terms of just the sport, but then the money that stems from that as well. One of the things we talked about in our previous interview was when GB hosted the Olympics in 2012 in London, you had sports like handball and beach volleyball that suddenly they received funding because actually we're hosting the Olympics. We need to get we need to get a team out for that. But I think one of the things that really gives me hope for flag football is that actually with that now happening for LA, we're going to see not just in the US but in other countries a similar thing happen, that more money will be made available.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm hoping for, and I think we all are hoping for. We talked about it, and I remember talking about it with players on different countries, different teams, how like their funding looks right now, and if they think it's going to change for the Olympics and stuff. Granted, I think only a select amount of teams are going to be in the Olympics. I don't know. I want to say it's 8 or 6 or something like that. I think it's like a selection process. I don't know for sure. It's like the World Games, I want to say. That's how it's going to break down like. But I do with that spotlight in the Olympics, whether it's your country or not there, I think all the other countries will see, okay, this is legit. Like these countries are getting better and better, and we need to put the funding into it to get better, to compete there. I'm at least hoping for that to happen, because I love seeing the sport grow. I love seeing the competition get higher. It makes it more fun for everyone, as viewers, athletes, everybody.
And I think that's something that we really, I think we're all really hoping for, because I mean, of course, we kind of talked to, US, absolutely, the runaway favourites in any tournament for flag football at the moment. But if we look at some of the other games, certainly the ones that we watched for Great Britain in particular, there were so many games that were coming down to the final play. I mean, our women, when they went out in the quarterfinal, it was a drop pass or a tip pass in the end zone at the end of the game. Our men, they went out by 1 point in the round of 16. So very, really tight games. And I think just in terms of the viewer experience as well, compared to the NFL, people always criticize, there's ad breaks and it's stop start. Actually, flag is such a fast game. You can go and sit down for an hour and watch a full game, and it is just non-stop entertainment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's like the best part. I think that's why it's like widely liked, because I know, especially with my boyfriend who played rugby, that's a nonstop sport. So he has trouble watching American football. And he'll always joke, and it kills me because I just want to watch football. And he's like, it just stops every second. He's like, I can't watch them just stop. Like, why are they stopping so much? I'm like, it's just the game. And then he came out and watched me play flag, and he's like, okay, yeah, this is a lot faster. Like, I really enjoy this. So it's very entertaining to watch, and I don't think people realize that because they think it's just the same as tackle. I know a lot of people are like blown to hear, oh, it's 5-on-5. Oh, wait, you can't do this. Oh, you can do this. Oh, that's how it works. Like they don't really know the rules yet. So I think like the more knowledge the public receives, the better they're just going to like it. And when it's getting the spotlight and it's on TV or it's able to stream, people will see how entertaining it is to actually watch.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I can't wait for it to come. I mean, it's something going back to me playing. I've never ever dreamed it been playing at a kind of, like you say, a world championship level, never mind at an Olympic sport, and the growth of the game over the last, I mean, over the last 20 years, but even just I'd say over the last 10 years, the game has grown so much. And I mean, it's teams like you guys going out and performing at this level, at an elite level, and showing the world what this sport is all about. It's making it grow. Like that team you mentioned there on Japan, like countries like Japan. And like I think another team we mentioned was Panama. Places like that, we think these guys, like, this is a country that maybe wouldn't know this sport, and suddenly they're playing at an elite level. So yeah, it's great to see the growth of the sport. Something that we've mentioned a couple of other people of conversations we've been having around the Olympics, and is this controversy, let's call it controversy, of the NFL players thinking they can just walk in and represent America, especially at the Olympics. One of the words that the GB guys used was a bit of disrespect. They feel as if the NFL have just thought, well, do you know what? This is our game. We can go and put a flag team in, and we've seen players talking about it, and obviously Jalen Hurts doing all the promo for it, but I think it was the men's US QB who she kind of came out and said, "No, this is our sport. This is our game. We play it." What's your kind of thoughts on the stance for this? Is it, should the NFL players be allowed to represent the country, or should they try it like everybody else?
Oh, 100%. If they're gonna involve the NFL players, they'd have to try out. Um, like I said earlier, like people think it's the same sport and it's not. Not saying that they couldn't figure out how to play it. Like they're
Yeah,
elite athletes, they could figure out how to play it. But it would take time. Like you're gonna have to get used to playing with the guys who have played it all their life. And they're how many steps ahead of them. Like, yeah, you're an athlete, but like anybody can be an athlete, but as soon as you get into a sport that you've never played, it's like different.
yeah,
I don't know who it was, but I've heard someone compare it like tennis and table tennis. Pretty much the same thing, but they're different sports.
yeah,
So it's just like that. I think if they're going to include the NFL guys, they're going to need to try out. But even then, I talked with someone about it. It's during their preseason stuff. So the coaches have to allow for this. Like the NFL coaches are going to have to allow for their players to step away from their career that they're getting paid to do, that team is paying them to do, to go and pursue this. That's not even like ever been on their radar. They just want to pick it up because it's cool to them. We have our guys who have been like pioneering this sport into where it is. And they've been setting time aside from their day jobs to promote this sport and play this sport because they love it so much. So it would be a little unfair. It would actually not be a little unfair. It'd be very unfair if they could just walk in and take their spot. And honestly, that wouldn't happen. They're going to have to work for it.
yeah.
So, I mean,
sorry.
yeah,
I
like
think
we appreciate all the competition for sure and love what the NFL is doing for flag in general. But to say that they're really just going to like walk in and this is theirs, this is their team to take over, is just a little crazy.
I think the other thing that you started to touch on there, Izzy, as well, is around, I guess, injuries. So you mentioned obviously the NFL teams are the ones paying these players. So I mean, there is a financial investment in I don't know, a Patrick Mahomes or a Lamar Jackson. That I mean, we say flag is a non-contact sport, but I mean, we've seen you sporting the game breaker, head protector. You could get a concussion. You can still tear ACLs, ankle injuries. These things can happen, and people need to recover. So that, I guess, that's the other thought from me, is that yes, for the league and the sport, it's fantastic exposure, but Andy Reid or any of the other NFL coaches, they want their players to come back to camp after the Olympics is done.
Right. Yeah. Injuries, that's a huge thing. Because it's not like, yeah, flag is like non-contact, but there's so many non-contact injuries. Like you said, ACLs are huge, or like Achilles injuries. Like those are huge recovery times. And to have that happen to one of them while they're on a contract from a team that they aren't even associated with when they do that, it would just, I mean, it would suck for them. and it would suck for the organization. But yeah, it's a lot of things that go into it, and I'm just like interested to know what they're going to decide on and how they're going to go forward with it. I mean, we don't really know how our selection process is going to go as women. We don't really have to worry about that, but yeah, I'm interested to hear how it's going to go.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, it's 4 years away. There's still a lot of chat to happen. But my opinion, I agree with you. As if from the start, I've said this is, and I don't mean disrespectful by saying that this is the amateurs. It's their game. This is not the professionals' game. It's the people who have built the sport. The people who have got the profile raised. Like they've worked all their life to get this game to the pinnacle. So now it's there. You can't take it away from them. I mean, these guys and girls are the people who have worked as hard as they possibly can. Like you said, taking time off work unpaid to go and play in tournaments all across the world. They deserve their chance to go and show what they can do on this stage. And I will shout that bandwagon the whole way right through early 2028 and hopefully beyond, because that's my opinion, is that's the way it should be. It's these people have earned their opportunity. Let them go and get the spotlight and let them get the glory of it they've worked hard to get. So I 100% back you on that opinion. Gav, you wanted one more point before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think the other thing, and we kind of talked about earlier, is about your inspirations, and you'd obviously mentioned, a lot of that coming from your family, and we talked, and I guess your fellow Ohio native LeBron James. But I guess the one thing that's really interesting for me, and I've seen some of your US teammates talk about this in recent weeks, is how representation matters. And I'll be completely honest, I can talk about certain females that I've seen play flag at a local level that I've met personally. Up until the World Championships, I couldn't name anyone. And I guess the big thing for me is that there is a real opportunity now for the sport for people to actually look, and particularly women, but not just women, to look and say, actually, and I'll maybe protect your ego here, or your modesty, by saying, I want to be the next Madison. I want to be the next Venita. You've got all these teammates, doing amazing things and becoming world champions. And yes, that could be the next Izzy Geraci. But that's the big thing, is there's now an opportunity, not just with LA, but beyond, for there to be a pathway, so that it doesn't just need to be that I need to go into basketball because that's where I'll get my scholarship. This is a sport that could absolutely translate into the college game. I think for some of your teammates, in fact, that's already the case, but it's maybe a very foundational level. Do you have any thoughts of both, just in terms of representation and the legacy that flag in the Olympics could create?
Yeah, yeah, like you said, with college girls now, it's huge here, or it's becoming bigger in NAIA, which is a different division than the NCAA. I don't know how many teams are in it now, but some of our girls do play in college, and they compete for a national championship every year. And there's also schools in the NCAA that are now grasping onto flag football and starting to make teams. I think there was a school, it was the first Division I school to add a team. And then there's also club teams as well through college. But to be able to have that and grow the sport where you have players like Vanita who have been in it and have so much knowledge, and people look up to her. Like every time we're at a tournament, there's kids that come up, her and Madison, and they'll always ask for photos. And we joke about it. We start tallying how many photos they get asked for. But like, it's things like that where, as a young player, that I didn't have like a female football player to look up to. I always just loved watching like the guys play tackle. And I had my favorite football players, but I never had like a favorite female football player. And the more the media highlights, I mean, men and women playing flag, like the more people will see, oh, these athletes are actually really great at the sport they do. And when my daughter or my son decides to get into this sport, maybe they'll have this person to look up to and transform their game to be just like theirs. So I think it's a huge thing with the media. As soon as the media highlights it and gets into it is really when it's going to grow. And I think really put certain players on a pedestal to where like that'll happen, where kids will have these people to look up to.
Yeah, and I think that's what we all want. I mean, I'm kind of linking back to the basketball point for a second. We've really seen, I guess, with the WNBA this year. Obviously, it's been around for years as a league, but people talk about the Caitlin Clark moment, and she is a huge part of it. But it's not just that. You have Angel Reese, you've got Cameron Brink. There's this whole rookie class this year that's come in now with like a renewed focus, and that's maybe difficult for some of the established players, but absolutely in terms of getting the profile of women's sport out into the mainstream, I think it's been superb. And I would like to think that it doesn't just need the Olympics for that to happen, but over the next few years, in flag football, we can talk about, Vanita Crouch or Phoebe Schechter, Diana Flores, or even, Izzy Geraci. So, that's, I think, in the most positive way, you're right when you say we do really want to see people up on that pedestal and see them alongside the other, athletes or tennis players or swimmers that we see at the Olympics. This really is a time for flag football to shine. For
sure. Yeah, I completely agree. And that's like, you talked about the WNBA. I think that's like a perfect example of how this could go. Like you have the players that are performing at such a high level. You just need like the spotlight to be on them. And as soon as the people see and the audience sees like, man, this is really entertaining. Like these are really good players. They'll start to catch on, just like how Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, like it's such high competition between those two. And like, it was fun to watch. It was like a nice little storyline and people were bought in and now they still are. I think like the WNBA is at its highest rating and the NCAA women's basketball is at its highest rating. So it just continues to grow the more you spotlight it. And that's what I'm hoping for with flag football. And that's what you guys are doing. And I really appreciate that.
No, Izzy, we appreciate you coming on and telling us your story. I mean, we just want to give people like yourself and anybody else a platform to come and tell us your story. We want flag football to be as a success as the next person. And we just want to provide a platform for people to come and tell their stories. We can share that, you can share that, and it just gets the sport kind of more spotlight, like you said. And that's what sport list needs. It needs as much spotlight as it can possibly get to grow and grow and grow. And look where we've got to already without that spotlight. So imagine what it's going to be like when the spotlight gets put on it properly. And it's exciting times for the sport going ahead. Izzy, thank you so much for making the time to chat to us today. I would appreciated you coming on, but coming on your birthday is just another level of appreciation for that.
Thank you, guys.
Pleasure to have you on. Good luck for the future. We look forward to seeing you representing Team USA in the next couple of years, and we know we'll be seeing you in early 2028. We know we'll be watching highlight reels of you one-handed catch in LA. But what I want to say is, when that time comes and you're that superstar in LA 2028, don't forget about us. We'll still be here in the background. Just give us a wee shout or something.
I would never. We'll do a recap. We'll do some recaps.
You're standing up there with your gold medal in the Olympics. Just give us a shout. We're not asking for much.
I got you. If I make the team, I got you. Thank you, guys.
No, thanks, Izzy. For everybody who's watching or listening to us, this has been the Special Crew. I've been Dan, this has been Gav, and this has been Izzy. We will have more chat across the flag football world coming over the next couple of months. Keep an eye on our social media and all our YouTubes and Instagrams. Everybody get your podcasts for the latest news and who we've got next on the Special Crew. Until then, we'll be back soon.